Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 61. Chapter 61. Sign in Tony, become a mechanical genius. Definitely, before he left, he didn't forget that he didn't sign in today. I don't know what super ability Tony can bring him. Open black lens bracket ding. Did the host check in with Tony Stark? Close black lens bracket, sign in. Open black lens bracket ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super ability, Heart of Machinery, with 100 experience points. Close black lens bracket. Mechanical heart. After integrating this super ability, Levi's instantly understood the specific role of this super ability. To put it simply, having a mechanical heart is equivalent to making him a mechanical genius, with unparalleled ability in machinery. Definitely, no matter how powerful the ability is, you need to accumulate a certain amount of knowledge. And Levi's happens to have a super brain that has stored a lot of knowledge in physics and chemistry. With these knowledge reserves, he can even create a steel armor at any time, and it is nothing to definitely make a steel armor. The power core of the steel armor is the most important. And if Levi's wants to make a reactor power source like Tony's, it's too easy. Because he has the last element material, he can directly create non-existent material to replace the reactor energy. Thinking of this, a blueprint had already appeared in his mind. Above a city composed entirely of mutants, there was a huge amount of sky battleship hidden. This is his ambition for the future, to create an academy city of his own. But it's too far to think about it for now. Now he has to Dr. Ethan and bring him back. The next day, Levi's came to the Gumila area, along with Polaris and Clarice. The three came to a small town. Wes, are we here to find someone? Clarice asked curiously. Levi's nodded. We're looking for a man named Dr. Eason. Polaris looked at him and said, don't you know the exact location of this Dr. Eason? It's a little hard to find. Well, it's really difficult, but don't worry, I have a way. Ordinary people can't use telepathy to find them. In telepathy, mutants are so special that they can tell them apart. But there are so many ordinary people that it is impossible to tell who is who. So it is not feasible to use the brainwave intensifier to find. However, Levi's is not worried, just use telepathy to find people around Dr. Ethan to obtain memories. At the same time, obtaining the memories of a large number of humans around him is a huge workload. Fortunately, he has the ability of super brawn. Otherwise, you can't really handle it. The three entered the town. I saw that the whole town was dilapidated, there were not many pedestrians on the street, and every pedestrian looked yellow and thin. After seeing the three of them, these pedestrians hurriedly avoided as if they had seen some terrifying people. But for a moment there was no one on the street. What's wrong with them? Clarice wondered why these people hid when they saw them. It should be affected by the war. Levi's explained with a heavy expression. Today's Gumila area is being baptized by artillery fire, and the culprit is the 10 Rings, also known as the 10 Rings. This is a huge organization, and they have their presence almost all over the world. Compared with Hydra, which shows up from time to time, the 10 Rings gang is more low-key. But there is no doubt that they also have bigger ambitions. It can be seen from the fact that they captured Tony but did not kill him, but asked Tony to make weapons for them. It can be seen that the 10 Rings are very concerned about high-tech weapons. Looking at the tragedy in the town, both Polaris and Clarice felt a little unbearable. In this era of technological development, it is hard to imagine that there is such a tragic place here. All the people in the town were yellow-faced and skinny. At first glance, they didn't have enough to eat. Even the corpses on the side of the road stink because no one was handling them. Come on, forget about it. Levi's said flatly. He doesn't have the ability to manage these things, and he can't manage them, and even if he can manage them, he doesn't want to manage these things that are not related to him. Although Polaris and Clarice are a little emotional, the importance of things is still clear. After walking around the town, Levi's quickly scanned the entire town with telepathy. Unfortunately, there is no information he wants here. Continue to the next town. However, when they came to this town, there was a sudden rumbling around. The whole town was engulfed by artillery fire. Be careful. Levi's looked around vigilantly. Although he was not afraid of hot weapons, Clarice and Polaris were not. Who the hell did this? Polaris frowned. Levi's used telepathy to scan the surroundings, and suddenly found a large number of terrorist militants outside the town. And he was very familiar with these terrorists. It's the 10 Rings Gang. 10 Ring Gang. Polaris and Clarice were both puzzled. It's the name of a group of terrorist organizations. When Levi's said this, the two suddenly understood. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 62. Chapter 62 Scarlet Witch Wanda and Quicksilver Pietro. So are we going to do this? Get out of here. Clarice frowned. The whole town has been destroyed, and there is no way to see anyone alive, so there is no way to find someone. Wait first, it seems that there are 2 people alive. Levi's telepathy found 2 living people in the ruins of the town, and these 2 people were not ordinary people, but mutants. There are still people alive. Where are they? Both Polaris and Clarice were a little surprised to hear that there were still people alive. Come with me. Led by Levi's, the 3 came to a collapsed house. It was a little surprising that there was still a missile on the ruins, but the missile did not explode. However, the risk of explosion cannot be ruled out. Come closer, Levi's said to Polaris and Clarice beside him. In case the missile exploded, he could also use the space to move away with the 2 of them. The 2 of them got close to him. Immediately afterwards, Levi's waved his hand and used electromagnetic force to carefully remove all the broken bricks and tiles from the house. Finally, the missile that did not explode was slowly moved away. This is still a missile made by Stark Industries. Seeing the markings on the missile, he immediately recognized that it was made by Stark Industries. Throwing the missile aside, he continued to clear the ruins of the house. Soon, the collapsed house was cleared out. I saw a man and a woman, 2 teenagers hugging each other and lying motionless in the corner of the ruins. It's 2 kids, Clarice exclaimed. Polaris hurried forward and took both children out. How is it? Clarice asked anxiously. Fortunately, I just passed out. Polaris finally breathed a sigh of relief after looking at it. These 2 kids are mutants, let's send them back to the academy first. Levi's frowned. He always felt that these 2 children looked familiar, but he couldn't remember who they were. It stands to reason that he has the super ability of Super Brawn, and his previous memories have been sorted out, and it is impossible to forget. Suddenly he thought of an idea, that is to sign the 2 of them. Open black lens bracket ding. Did the host check into mutant Quicksilver? Close black lens bracket. What? Turned out to be Quicksilver. After being prompted by the system, Levi's looked at the boy in front of him in astonishment. This teenage boy turned out to be Quicksilver. Did something go wrong? If I remember correctly, in Avengers Alliance 2, Quicksilver is already in his 20s. That's not right, he still hasn't figured out whether the Quicksilver in front of him is the setting of Avengers Alliance or the setting of X-Men. In short, the Marvel Universe is too complicated, and it is not easy for him to jump to conclusions. But the system won't lie to him, the boy in front of him should be Quicksilver without a doubt. If the boy is Quicksilver, then the other little girl doesn't have to guess to know it must be Scarlet Witch Wanda. Open black lens bracket ding. Did the host check in on the mutant Scarlet Witch Wanda? Close black lens bracket. Sure enough, the little girl in front of him was Scarlet Witch Wanda. Homeland destroyed by artillery fire, and missiles from Stark Industries, it's a bit of a setting for Avengers, Age of Ultron. But the 2 are indeed mutants. If it is the setting of Avengers, Age of Ultron, then they are not mutants, but the ability obtained through Mind Gem. But there's a lot of conflict in it, and Levi's can't figure it out. If he didn't understand, he didn't bother to think about it. The system signs me in. Scarlet Witch's origin magic power is very eye-catching. Open black lens bracket ding. Sign in failed. Close black lens bracket. Quote. Levi's mouth twitched slightly, unexpectedly failing. Forget it, take it back to the academy first, and the sign-in will always be successful. Are they mutants? Polaris and Clarice were a little surprised to hear his words. Yes, let's take them back first. Navis, aren't you looking for someone? Clarice asked suspiciously. Don't worry, it's only a moment to go back. Levi smiled and shook his head. Yeah, Clarice was a little embarrassed that she asked such a stupid question. Okay, come and catch me, we're ready to go back. Polaris and Clarice nodded. Then the 3 of them took 2 children and disappeared into the ruins in an instant. In Mutant College, Teacher Chin, show them quickly. Levi's and Polaris came to the infirmary with Quicksilver and Wanda, respectively, and found Jean Grey. Let's put it on the hospital bed first. Qin Jian and the others hurried over with their 2 children in their arms. Where did you bring the children back from? Qin asked with some doubts. It was in the Gumila area, rescued from the ruins. Clarice explained. Gumila. Jin was a little surprised, but he was not surprised when he thought that Levi's had the ability to move in space. Jin simply checked the 2 children. Fortunately, they were just frightened and fainted, and their bodies were not injured. They only needed a rest to recover. Great. Polaris and Clarice were relieved after hearing the words. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 63. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 63 Being Treated as God. Okay, let's take care of these 2 children here. I have to go back and find Dr. Ethan. Levi's then looked at Polaris and Clarice. We're going with you. No need. Levi's waved his hand in rejection. Okay then. Seeing that he refused, the 2 did not insist. Returning to the destroyed town, Levi's squinted slightly in a direction where the 10 Ring gang left. Originally, he wanted to get rid of these people, but after thinking about it, he still didn't do it. This revenge should be left to Wanda and Quicksilver to avenge themselves. Ignoring these people, Levi's disappeared into the town in the blink of an eye. To the next town, telepathy unfolds and soon gets word from Dr. Ethan. However, this news made Levi's look a little weird, because he was once again caught by the 10 Rings. On the square in the center of the town, the terrorists of the 10 Rings gang are looting here, and all the old and weak women and children have been pulled out. The men stayed to work as coolies, the women stayed to enjoy, and some old and weak women and children were driven away. If they dared to resist, a bullet would inevitably send them on their way. This scene is really too cruel, but it is not uncommon in this war-affected area. And Dr. Eason seemed to be tied to the big truck in resignation. Seeing this, Levi's could only sigh helplessly. It seems that only by giving him some hope can he arouse the desire to live. With the arrival of Levi's, the terrorists of the 10 Rings gang also discovered him one after another. Levi's ignored the people and walked straight towards the truck. One of the terrorists from the 10 Rings gang fired without hesitation. Boom! The sound of bullets sounded, making the surrounding people a little terrified. Because every time a terrorist shoots, it means that another person will be mercilessly killed. However, the bullet stopped when it was 1 meter away from Levi's. He didn't look back, just waved it casually. The next moment, the bullet flew backwards. Pissed. I saw that the bullet seemed to be alive, constantly passing through the heads of the terrorists. But in an instant, all terrorists were killed by this bullet. It was not until all the terrorists fell that the surrounding townspeople reacted, and they looked at the terrorists around them with wide eyes in disbelief. Then all the townspeople cheered. Feeling the noise around him, Dr. Ethan also came back to his senses, and he looked at Levi's, who was approaching without any expression. Dr. Ethan, I came to you specially. I have an experimental plan that needs your participation. Levi's directly invited. Ethan's expression didn't change when he heard his words. I reject. Hearing this answer, he was not surprised. What if I could resurrect your family? Hearing this, Ethan's eyes had a little look. Come on, don't deceive me. He simply didn't believe that someone could resurrect someone who had died, not even a corpse. I didn't deceive you. The corners of Levi's mouth twitched slightly, and then he came to the side of a middle-aged man who fell to the ground and kept wailing. The man's arm was brutally severed by the terrorists, and he saw that he had already bled too much and died soon. He didn't say a word, just put his hand on the man's arm. The next moment, something magical happened. I saw that this person's arm actually gradually grew out, but in a moment the arm appeared intact. My arm is ready. The middle-aged man got up from the ground in disbelief and kept looking at his arm. Really recovered. The middle-aged man couldn't help rubbing his eyes excitedly. Ha ha ha, my arm has recovered. The other townspeople around were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. God, what did I see? You are the one sent by God to save us. Thank God for saving us. Some fanatics completely regard Levi's as a god, and worship him directly. Soon everyone else learned to kneel and worship. Ethan, who was on the side, was stunned when he saw this scene. He had no idea that someone could bring a broken limb back to life. He stared blankly at Levi's, feeling that the man in front of him was God. Don't worship everyone, you can share these foods. Levi's waved his hand and used molecular manipulation to instantly create some chicken, beef and other foods. The molecular structure of meat is relatively simple, and he can easily create it. When the townspeople saw the food, they became even more frenzied. They did not snatch the food, but continued to worship. Levi's ignored them. Dr. Ethan, you should believe it now. Believe, I believe, you are the reincarnation of God. I beg you to resurrect my family so that I can do anything. Ethan bowed his head in a frenzy, just like those fanatics. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 64. Chapter 64. Master can do anything to me. Levi's was taken aback. But that's fine, it saves him so much nonsense. Follow me. I'll help you resurrect your family. Yes, Ethan nodded again and again. Seeing this, Levi's grabbed him by the shoulders, and the two of them disappeared in place in an instant, using space to move. It was not until he disappeared that the townspeople began to snatch food. The other side, Levi's took Ethan to the underground laboratory in an instant. Aware of his arrival, Su Fei and Phoebe hurried over among the Cuckoo sisters. Master, sisters Su Fei and Phoebe shouted respectfully. Cough, I've already said that when someone is around, just call me by my name. Levi's coughed a little helplessly. Among the 5 Cuckoo sisters, Celeste and Esme, who are the big sister and the second sister, are very obedient. But the 3 sisters Su Fei, Phoebe and Tracy McGrady are a little naughty. Yes, Master, Su Fei and Phoebe nodded. Levi's mouth twitched slightly when he saw this. He no longer bothered about the question of the name, turned to look at Ethan and said, Ethan, I can't revive your family for you for the time being, but don't worry. I have an ability that can make people's consciousness go back to the past, so that they can change the future and save your family. Will that allow me to go back to the past and change the future of my family? Ethan asked hurriedly. Levi's shook his head. Your soul simply can't stand the pain of traveling back to the past. To know why Wolverine is allowed to travel back in the original book, it is precisely because Wolverine's soul is tougher. If it is an ordinary person, I am afraid that the soul has already dissipated. Besides, Ethan's family was killed by terrorists. Even if he was allowed to go back, what could he do as an ordinary person? Ethan was a little at a loss. Don't worry, although my ability cannot teleport the body at the moment, it will not take long for the body and consciousness to travel back to the past together, and then I will save your family. That's what Levi's had in mind. Manipulating this ability with other molecules may be able to directly create a body, but the soul is still unable to be created by him. So if you want to save Ethan's family, you have to travel back in time. I believe you. After listening to his words, Ethan chose to believe him without reservation. Well, then, Dr. Ethan, you should stay in the laboratory and help. No problem, Ethan agreed decisively, and then took the initiative to join the research. Seeing this, Levi's nodded with satisfaction, and did not waste his efforts to find him, so that the research progress would definitely be greatly increased. As for traveling back to the past to save his family, that's a small matter. When he's a level 5 mutant, he doesn't mind doing this little favor. Master. At this time, the coquettish voices of Su Fei and Phoebe beside him awakened Levi's, who was thinking. What's wrong, Master? You have grown up too. After saying that, Su Fei and Phoebe stuck to him, acting like a spoiled child. Cough, you two give me some seriousness. Levi's coughed dryly and hurriedly got rid of the entanglement between the two. Okay, I'll leave first if I have something to do. After he finished speaking, he moved directly into the laboratory and disappeared in a space. Su Fei and Phoebe looked at each other and laughed out loud. Immediately afterwards, the two chatted in the spiritual network. Phoebe, the master was so embarrassed just now. The shy master is so funny. Phoebe, Su Fei, what did you do to the master? It's big sister, we teased the master just now, and the master's reaction was so funny. You are saying this, so you are not afraid that the master will punish you. What are you afraid of? If it's a big deal, let the master do whatever he wants. Quote. When the other 3 sisters saw that they were having a good chat, they also joined in. It just so happened that Levi's didn't check their mental network, otherwise, they would definitely be punished. When we returned to Mutant College, it was already night. Weiss, you're back. Glad to see him back, Polaris. Well, by the way, are those two children awake? Levi's asked curiously. I've woken up, go and have a look, Polaris said and dragged him to the infirmary. In the infirmary, brother and sister Wanda and Pietro had indeed woken up. Wanda, here comes the one Pietro rescued you from, Polaris shouted. When the two siblings heard his words, they all looked at Levi's. The two then thanked them respectfully. Thank you, X2. It's fine. Levi smiled and looked at the two of them. What's your name? My name is Wanda, my sister, and he is Pietro. Wanda introduced the two of them. Hello, my name is Levi's, you can just call me Wes. Levi smiled and touched the heads of the two. Big brother Weiss. The two of them called out obediently. When we found you, the whole town was in ruins, only you survived strong, don't be sad, and live well in the future. Levi's comforted. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 65. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 65 Wanda and Pietro and #039's enemy, the Ten Ring Gang. The two had just lost a loved one and experienced a terrifying disaster, and they were emotionally unstable. Hearing him say that, both of them couldn't hold back their tears. I must work hard to live, and then take revenge. Wanda clenched her fists and her eyes were firm. Yes, I will definitely take revenge on Stark Industries, Pietro said with red eyes and gritted teeth. Levi's couldn't help frowning when he heard it. It seems that because of that missile, they still let them target the Stark industry for hatred. This will not work. After all, the culprit is the Ten Rings Gang. These people cannot be allowed to go unpunished. No, Wanda, Pietro, your enemies are not Stark Industries, the mastermind behind the destruction of the town is the Ten Rings Gang. The Ten Rings Gang. Wanda and Pietro were a little puzzled when they heard his words. That's right, the Ten Rings Gang are the terrorists who attacked your town. Remember, your enemies are those who use weapons, not those who make them, understand? Levi's looked at the two seriously. Well, we see. Wanda and Pietro nodded heavily upon hearing this. They are still young now, so they can't tell who is the real enemy, so they have always regarded Tony Stark as the enemy. This is totally unnecessary, and the true enemy cannot be allowed to go unpunished. I have written down all the people who destroyed your village. After you have the ability, go and take revenge yourself. We will definitely try. Wanda and Pietro looked at each other, and then agreed with a firm expression. Okay, it's getting late, you should go and have a good rest. Levi smiled and let the two go to rest. Weiss, why don't we avenge them? Polaris asked with a puzzled look after the two children left. In her opinion, helping Wanda and Pietro take revenge should be a very simple matter for them. Levi's chuckled. It's just giving them a goal to work towards. When Polaris heard this, he suddenly realized that he was afraid that the two children would be too sad to think about it. Weiss. Polaris looked at him tightly, and the man in front of him was too careful. He always felt like he had thought of everything in advance. It's just that she has been choosing to escape when dealing with feelings, which makes her a little distressed. What's wrong? Levi's turned to look at her suspiciously. Can you come to my room tonight? Polaris slowly approached him with a slightly raised corner of his mouth. Cough, I'm used to sleeping alone. He took a few steps back calmly. Polaris shrugged unexpectedly. All right then, good night. With that, she turned and left. Forehead. Levi's was stunned for a while, but he didn't expect Polaris to leave. Forget it, go back to sleep. He didn't even think about it if he didn't understand. It's just that he always feels a little energetic recently, perhaps because of the evolution of his body, or else he'd better play games at night. The next day, Levi's came to the classroom normally. But this morning seems to be a little too lively. Hey, Poppy, have you heard that the school is going to hold a power ranking competition, and everyone who enters the top 10 will be rewarded with 10,000 United States dollars. Not only that, I heard that there are more rewards for the top 3. I've heard of this too, and there are a lot of new bats in the gym, which is great. It is said that these are the money from Levi's. Why is he so rich? Hearing these remarks, Levi's couldn't help but smile. It seems that this time the school equipment update and competition have excited everyone. Levi's had just walked into the professor when Poppy Iceman stood up and shouted. Boss, The students in the classroom looked at him in astonishment, wondering what the hell he was up to. Levi's was also a little confused. Hey, boss, didn't you let him call you boss when you beat John, so I'll recognize you as boss like him? Iceman Poppy said with a look of flattery. Cough, tell me, what do you want? Seeing him like this, Levi's knew that something must have happened to him. Otherwise, Poppy usually ignores him. It's nothing, I just know that you are too powerful, boss, and it's a great honor for me to be your little brother. If Poppy regarded Levi's as an opponent before, he would naturally have an attitude of not admitting defeat, so he didn't give him any good looks. But since learning that Levi's has become the leader of the X-Men, his attitude has changed. If someone is only stronger than you, he may be regarded as an opponent, but if the opponent is an existence that you can't hope to achieve, then the opponent will not be regarded as an opponent, but an object of worship. Iceman Poppy is like that. After hearing about what Levi's had been up to during this time from Storm yesterday, he no longer had any idea of comparing. Levi's, however, didn't take Poppy's word lightly. There must be something wrong with this guy being so enthusiastic. Please like and subscribe.